Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today as part of our inaugural Tigunia Virtual Forum. We greatly appreciate everyone who has joined us for this presentation, and we hope the information shared during this presentation is beneficial to you and your team after you leave here today. My name is Kelly Porter, one of the sales team members here at Tigunia, and I'll be your moderator for this presentation, which will be for approximately 45 minutes with a 15-minute Q&A at the end. We do encourage that you ask questions, as this is ultimately about providing you with as much information as possible. All questions are to be asked in the Q&A chat, and we will review, answer each question at the end if they were not already answered during the presentation. And without further delay, I introduce to you now, more formally known as the president of Tigunia, we'd like to call on one of our data wizards, Ron Summers.
All right, thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate it. And before we get started, I just want to start with a big thank you for everyone attending today. I'm really excited what we have to show you today with integrating BC data with, kind of a couple Office 365 applications, Office and Word, Excel and Word. And also we're going to take a look at Power Apps. Power Apps is really cool application that allows you to build integrations into Business Central. It's really easy. I talked about it today in the keynote session, and there was a couple people asking questions about it. So hopefully you was able to join this today so we can take a look at building a sample Power Apps and going through there. As Kelly said, I really like this to be an interactive session. So if you do have any questions with anything you're seeing today, feel free to just shoot the question through the Q&A portion of the chat, and we'll try and monitor that and answer those questions as we go along, because I want to make sure you have the ability to come out of here with all the knowledge and all the information that you need. So just as a quick introduction, as Kelly said, my name is Ron Summers. I'm the president of Tigunia. And I have done a lot with data. As he said, I've spent a lot of time. My background is technical. I started as a developer back in 2000. And about 2005, I kind of switched over to focus solely on reporting and BI. So I spent a lot of time in the BI space working with data, a lot of different companies. So feel free, again, as I said, if you have any questions, I want to make this very interactive and we go through everything, okay? So as we're talking here, my email is right here, just ron@tigunia.com. If you have any additional questions after that you come across, or if you're trying to do something, feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to go through, talk through, help out with anything that you may have going on. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our agenda today, and this is what we're going to look at. To get to where we need to about consuming data outside of Business Central, we need to talk about OData and why is it so important. We're going to look at OData, how it's structured, how you get at it in Business Central, how you work it. We're going to spend the first probably 10 to 15 minutes just talking through that, because that is the key to everything we do beyond that. And then we're going to go through connecting from Excel, connecting from Word. We're going to talk about Power Apps. And I know that says, what is Power Apps? It seems like it should say, what are Power Apps? But Power Apps is actually singular. That was one of the things. So I had to struggle not putting R in front of that. So anyway, so we'll go through what is Power Apps, and then we'll talk about connecting with Power Apps. Okay, how we connect, and we'll do the demo. I don't have very many slides because most of my information that we're going to go through here is pure like going through software and screens and everything. So we just got a handful of slides here, and then we'll jump over into the actual demo portion. So let's talk about OData. Okay, OData stands for, as we see here, the Open Data Protocol. Okay, and I'm just going to read this as it says. OData is a web protocol that's designed for querying tabular data, so data in a database that we see. Tabular data is like it sits in a spreadsheet, and provides with an alternative to SOAP. That's how you did it before OData. You can connect through SOAP web services and stuff that you saw before. And then, so OData is purely web-based technology, okay? Most of the OData responses are in JSON and in a JSON format. Okay, so a lot of your providers on OData will return it in a JSON format, and there's a lot of applications out there that can consume data in a JSON format. Okay, so we can use this OData web services to show Business Central data or Dynamics Nav data. Okay, what you're going to see me do today, it's going to be based on Business Central, but you can also do it in Dynamics Nav. Okay, Dynamics Nav had this OData interface, so if you have a previous version prior to Business Central, it still works, and you can do a lot of what you're going to see today. Okay, as I said, I don't have a lot of slides. We're just going to go right into the demo, and we're going to start with how do I configure Business Central to allow OData connections, okay? Because first off, you got to give, there's permissions you have to give and certain things got to happen. So let's just jump right over into the Business Central interface, okay? I'm going to start with the Microsoft Cloud piece, okay? So this is hosted Microsoft Cloud just by going to businesscentral.dynamics.com, logged in, and this is the interface, okay? Because there is a little different on getting OData in the Microsoft Cloud versus on-premise or a hosted solution, okay? So in the cloud, there's a couple things, and what we can do is we can go and see web services. So if we just go here and say, hey, I want to look at our list of our web services, we can click this, and it's going to list out all the web services that have been exposed in this instance. And just so you know, if it doesn't show up in here, this data will not be exposed to the outside world. And so if you're looking for something, it has to be based in here. And the object types are page, query, and code unit. Okay, if you notice, I'm going to come up here to the code unit ones. What we're going to see is there's code unit ones. They do not have an OData URL, okay, because code units can only be consumed through SOAP web services. Okay, now I have actually connected to a code unit through OData connection, but it is done in Visual Studio. If anyone wants any more information on that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd love to talk about that. But that's done through a Visual Studio interfaces with OData, and it actually works very well. So let's get back over here and talk about OData. So if it is not exposed here, then again, we will not see it. Okay, we can't expose it to the outside world. So it's really easy to add a web service here. So I can just come in here and we're going to say, I want a new web service, and we're going to expose the customer page. Okay, so I'm going to say we want a page. I know the page is 22. And when I put it here, it puts the customers on here, and then I'm going to call it customers. Okay, if you leave it just like that, it's going to create your entry. But if you never click publish here, again, the user will never see it. So once you click publish here and you leave the record and it updates, what it does is it gives it the OData URL. Okay, this URL is very important, and we'll talk about this URL in just a minute. Okay, and so that is how we get through the OData, and we create the OData web services and how we're going to expose this information to the outside world. Okay, so now that we did this, we have access to this. And you're saying, so what data can you expose within Business Central? So a lot of times what I tell people when working with this is I come in and, for example, I knew I can expose customers, okay, because we have that, and I just click on customers here and we get the customer list. That's what that page is we just exposed. And so all of this information is we just expose this through that OData web service, and there's a lot more data on here when we do this. If we go and modify this, you know how you can add columns and all that information. That is what's exposed in the customer page, and that's what we can get access. So as you're typically, you want to lean on the list forms and the list pages. And so as you're going through here, if you see list and stuff, if you see it there, we can expose that so you outside sources can consume it. Okay, so that's how you know what you can and can't consume. Okay, so this is, again, in BC Cloud. This is the Microsoft Cloud instance. Notice just if we go back to web services, I want to jump back over there because we need to look at that URL. Okay, notice how it starts with api.businesscentral.dynamics.com. Okay, that is the interface for the OData web services in the cloud. Now it's got a whole key over here, which is like a whole hash key and stuff. That's how it knows what instance to get to. And this is all secured through security, through usernames and passwords, and we'll see that. Okay, I'll show that in just a minute, and we'll be able to look at that. What I want to do is jump over to like a hosted solution or an on-prem solution, because this is how this would work. And so if I go over here to a kind of like a hosted on-premise solution, we still have the same features, so I can still go to web services here. And I've already exposed the customer page on this one. And so we see here, notice the URL is slightly different, okay? This is, again, it's a hosted solution. We've got this one, I've had this one hosted in our data center. And so the big difference here is this port number, okay? So when they're hosted on-prem or in a data center, there's a port number that has to go through. And the reason that's important is because you have to open that port on the server to the outside world, okay? Because I've seen a lot of people say, hey, I've set this all up, it works internally, but I can't ever get at it externally. Well, you got to make sure this port is open through a firewall, okay? Because you got to allow traffic through, HTTP traffic through, so it can communicate, okay? So that's the big thing that has to be opened on the port, on the server and the firewalls to make sure you can get when you have a hosted or an on-premise solution, okay? So a couple things. Anytime I set up a web service, I tell people to say, once you set it up, you want to click on it, okay? Because what it's going to try to do is hit that web service, okay? And I'm going to try and log in here, and I'm going to use my username and password, and I log in, and it's going to come back, and this should error out because I just used my standard username and password. Actually, this one didn't. This might be set up slightly different. We should have got an error because actually, this one didn't error because I actually logged in earlier, and so it cached it. But we would have got an error, and what that is because if we go to users, let's go over here and take a look at users, and we logged in as admin. There's a new thing added here called the web service access key. So if we see this access key right here, this is actually the password to hit a web service. Okay, and it's not encrypted. It's a very difficult password that obviously no one can get. To get that, if you have a new user, it's probably blank. You click this button here, and it's going to say, okay, this is going to generate a new web service access key. You say yes, and then if you want it to expire, you can. So if you give someone temporary access, I can take that off, set a date. If I never want it to expire, click that and say okay. I'm not going to say okay because it'll overwrite my web service access key and then I'll have to regenerate all my stuff. So what that'll do, as soon as I click okay, it'll give it the web service access key. And this is now the password that you use to access it through web services. Okay, this is a very important step. It's not the standard username and password. Okay, so once you have that, it's pretty important. Now, a quick side note, a lot of times this password has like a slash in it or something like that. So if I click on this, and a lot of times if I tried to do copy or I just click in there or something, it doesn't copy properly. Okay, so a lot of times what I do is try to copy this and copy it over to like Notepad or something, and then I compare it just to make sure it's the same. And the easiest way I always get there is I just click up here and then I start tabbing down through all these controls until it highlights right there. Then I do a Control C and then paste it into Notepad. So then I'll hover over it and make sure my last characters come through. I got to make sure the equals comma that you see on the very bottom, on the very end there, actually came through, because if they didn't, you'll be missing characters. And so that's a very common thing that people run into. Okay. All right, so we go back here, and again, anytime you add anything here, you want to click on this to make sure you get this. Now this is JSON, okay? This is the JSON request, and this is readable. We can come up here and say, here's the company information, here's the customer table, and so this is all the Coronis company, and then so we see customers, and then all the information that comes with it, customer number, customer name, and you can read through this to see kind of what data. One thing you want to be careful of is if you're in a client's environment that, for example, if your GL entry has 10 million transactions and you click on a URL here that goes against general ledger entries, it's going to try to load 10 million transactions in the browser, and that's going to take a second. Okay, I think it will cache only so many records at a time. It depends on your setting. It may be a 20,000 limit. But what I'm saying is it may try to go get 20,000 records, and it's going to take a minute for it to come up into the browser. So you want to take caution when you try to do that. So the data URL is very important. So notice there's two URLs. There's the version 4 which is the latest format, and then there's regular OData, which is the base format. Okay, so hopefully that helped explain kind of what, from the OData perspective, kind of the setup in the interface, what needs to happen, how that needs to happen. We talked about the difference between BC Cloud and like an on-premise hosted solution, and that port needs to be opened up so you can get to it, okay? So if you're testing this port, again, if you do it right inside the network, this port may be open. You want to go access it from an external source, try to hit this URL with the port number to make sure it's coming all the way through all this information. Okay, so now that we have this information, we can go and start looking at how to integrate other applications. So what we're going to start with is integrating Excel. Okay, Excel is a very commonly used application. Okay, and so we're going to come over here, and we're just going to start with a blank Excel document. Okay, I really like Excel. I've spent a lot of time in Excel and done a lot of things. Excel in the years has transformed into this amazing tool to report with for data analysis and all sorts of stuff, and they just keep building more and more into it. Okay, if you look at Excel and what they've done, I don't remember exactly when they added it and exactly what happened here, but they added the data tab. Okay, there's a lot going on in this data tab, and there is a lot of functionality here. Unfortunately, we won't have the time to do everything that we could do in here. I'm just giving you a high-level overview of some of the basics. And again, there's multiple ways to do some of this. This is just some of the common ways and some of the easier ways that I've seen do this. So feel free to explore with it. Reach out if you have any questions on it or anything like that. So let's talk about getting data in Excel, because now that we have that, we expose that customer data set. Okay, and what it is just a customer listing. It has, you know, like the salesperson information on there. It's got what the customer balance. So someone come to me and said, "Hey, Ron, I'd like just to know by salespeople who their customers are assigned to them and what the balance of those customers are." Let's just take a look at that information. Okay, and so instead of maybe having to go to a developer or have some code some stuff, if I've already got that web service there exposed with the data that I need, I, as an end user, I'm like, you know, I would love to have a little more power and be able to do this. Okay, so everything starts here with getting the data. We want to connect to the data source and bring that data in. Okay, so if we stop at online services, I want to talk about, because there is one here that says Dynamics 365 Online. Okay, Microsoft actually really confused people when they started naming everything, in my view, Dynamics 365. Okay, this Dynamics 365 Online, I believe, is the sales Dynamics 365, what they call Dynamics 365 for sales now. Basically, it's CRM Online. So if you try to click this and put in URLs, you'll spend hours, and you're like, you know, you'll email me and say, "Ron, I tried forever and it is not working." Okay. Again, this isn't where we're looking at, okay? We need to go down here into other data sources, and here's our OData feed, okay? And so we're gonna click the OData feed, and then it's gonna come up here, okay? It is now looking for, hey, what is the URL that you're gonna connect to? Remember that URL that I talked about earlier? So what I did is I'm gonna jump back over there real quick. And so I went into our customer one, our customer page. Now in Excel, you got to use the base OData, not the V4. Okay, all it changed is this one says OData V4 and this one just says OData/. Okay, just Excel in this instance still uses the base version. So I copied this URL information. Okay, and now that I copied that, we're going to jump back over to our Excel document, and we're just going to paste that right in there. Okay, now I'm going to say, okay, if I hadn't ever connected to this source before, it would ask me for authentication information. And so that's when I'll show you what that authentication information looks like in just a minute. But since I've connected to this before, the same instance before, Excel's smart enough to say, hey, you've been on this computer and you've connected to it before. And so it just connected and brought back the data. Okay, so this is a live view of that data. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I can just say load. and it just loads it into the Excel data area and then drops me back to the sheet. Okay, but I want to say transform data. And the reason is because I want to get into this query editor. Okay, this is the Power Query Editor. Okay, again, we could spend a lot of time in this Power Query Editor on a lot of different things we can do, but I just want to focus just on highlight a few pieces, and there's some really great things we can do here. If you notice, we've got a lot more fields available to us than just the few that we saw in the customer list. So in that page query, that page OData feed, there is a lot of fields that was added to that customer listing page. So any field that was added, we have access to. So we see all that data here. And there's even a couple that was never added. If you go all the way over here to right, there's some, date filter. This is a flow filter. So this is really not useful to us in a tag. This is an internal tag. All right, I'm going to come back here because we're going to look at the balance field. Okay, there's a couple things I want to do here to this balance field. So first off, I'm going to right click right here, and I'm going to say, I really want to change this type, and we're going to treat it as currency. Okay, and that just adds the decimal places and anything for me. So when I'm looking at the data, I can see the currency or anything like that. Okay, the other thing I want to do is I want to filter. Okay, so I can either I don't want anything that has a zero balance. Okay, I only want to see customers. Okay, so I can do the standard Excel thing, just uncheck those, or I can say I want to filter the numbers, and I can say I want stuff that does not equal to 0. Again, it's all Excel filtering and all this, so I can filter those rows, and then we say okay, and there we go. So now I have the 15 to 20 records of the customers that actually have data. And again, there's a lot of information we can do here, okay, and a lot of different things we can modify in the data layer. I'm trying to keep it high level and simple and just show you the flow start to finish, okay. So now that I've applied a couple things here, I'm going to say close and load. And what this is going to do is it's going to load this into a sheet. Okay, this is just an Excel table now, and it's actually a real-time look into it. When we run this report, I can come into this refresh it, refresh the query, and it'll requery everything right there for me and have access to that. Okay, so now that I have that information, what can I do with an Excel? It's just a regular Excel table. Some people just leave it in this format because I can filter on it, run reports. But let's say I want to give it more of a dashboard type feel or anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop a pivot table right here, and I'm going to say use an existing connection because I've already got the connection that we just did that, and I've got that table right here. Okay, and so we're just going to connect to that and say okay. And what it's going to do is I'm going to close this connection window, and we're going to see that all that information. Oh, so I can just start clicking boxes now. There's all my customers. Okay. Oh, here's the salesperson they belong to. Let's bring salesperson up top. So now we have this customer does not have a salesperson assigned. JR has these customers. PS has these customers. And let's go down and grab their balance. Okay, and then it brought all that information. Okay, now I don't know why sometimes Excel should have brought in this number formatting. For some reason it didn't, even though I said currency in the data load. I'm not sure why. So I'll just come down into here if I want to change that and change this number format over here to currency, and there we go. Okay, I now have a very straightforward report with all this information. Again, this is a small data set, but think big, bigger data sets, all that information. So this allows us to get at that data from without any additional stuff. You've already got these tools. We've got Excel, and we've got this information. We have all that out there. Okay, so now as soon as we bring up this page, I can just hit the refresh, and it's going to go query that data live. Okay, boom, it just did a live query, and I have that information. Now there's tools and other ways out there that will allow you to refresh the data on a schedule or different stuff. I can set this pivot table up. I can set properties on it to refresh upon load, all that information. So this is a really great, quick, and amazing way you can get at that data through Excel do some analysis on it, get some information. I mean, think of if you just drop the GL entries in here with date filters, you can throw filters on it, say, hey, I'm dropping that on there, and then we can run some reports, financial type reports on here. Okay, really amazing way we can do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this Excel document. I'm going to save it in our TVF folder here, and I'm going to call it TVF customers, because we're going to use this in just a minute. All right, so we saved that document, and so what we did is we connected live to our Business Central data, brought in all that customer information. We've got what their current balance is, the customer, and who their salesperson is assigned to them. Okay, so that is the integration to Excel on how we can integrate with that. Again, we can get a lot more in depth on multiple queries from Business Central, and then we can marry them up in that Power Query Editor. Again, time won't allow us to do this. We're just showing the concept and the flow here. All right, so now the next step is Word integration. Okay, so we come in here and we start with a brand new Word document, and you say, okay, I've got data in Excel, I'm able to extract that. Now I want to come into Word, and I want to connect to that Business Central data to do some word manipulation, do some documentation in Word, okay? Word doesn't have a direct data tab just like Excel does, okay? I can't just click data, connect directly to it, anything like that. So what we're gonna do is, if I'm in Word and I'm going to connect the data, I'm going to do a mail merge basically. Excuse me, I'm going to do a mail merge document that'll allow me to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the mailings tab, because this is where we go get data. Okay, and I'm going to just start the wizard here. Okay, we're going to keep it pretty straightforward, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to do a letter. We're going to go here. We're going to use the current document. And now we're going to, where are we going to pull the data from? Now I can just type in a list, use Outlook, which I don't want to use any of these. Well, I'm going to say I want to use an existing list, and so I'm going to browse for it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to browse. I don't have a data source set up, and I'm actually going to browse back to that TVF folder, that TVS customer list that we just created. Okay, it says, what sheet do I want to use? Sheet 2 was the actual table that brought that in. Okay, and so this will just give me a preview of that data. There's those 20 customers that we had access to, and I said, yep, again, I can sort and filter and do all sorts of things here. I'm just going to say okay, and we're going to start with that. Okay, so here we're going to start out, and I'm going to say, okay, dear, and we're going to put in the company name. Okay. Please pay, and we're going to use the balance as soon as possible. Okay, and so I can just type it out here. Thank you for your support. And I can format this document. I can add logos. And my envision is, think of an invoice type document you can do here. You can put in the word tables and the word tables and all that information, or we're just sending people a reminder email, and we can say thank you for your support, and then we'll say Ron Summers here. Okay, so we have that, and we want to preview the results, and so I can hit preview here, and we start looking. I've got those 16 recipients, and I've going through all here, and we see all this, but notice this formatting is a little funky. Okay, and this is where some of the Word functionality, again, we're just leveraging Word functionality for all this. Okay, we used Excel to extract the data, and then we're connecting to the Excel document to leverage off of that. Okay, and so we're going to go back to the template here, and there's one thing we can do here. If I click on this piece and I hit toggle field codes, this is how we format in Word. Okay, so what I'd suggest you do is look up like Google, like Word field codes, shortcuts or anything like that, and it'll show you the format strings for this. Okay, this is the format string for comma separated with decimal places. Okay, so This is just an escape character and then the format string. Okay, and so now we're said, okay, merge failed, balance, and then the escape character. And then when I go back to toggle this, okay, it looks normal again. You have to toggle the field codes to get to that level and then hit the preview. Okay, now look, we've got properly formatted decimal places. Okay, and so once we're done here, we said, hey, this looks great. I want to finish and merge everything into its own individual document. We're going to merge everything. And now we just used Word mail merge to integrate data from Business Central. Okay, and so my vision for use on this is think about in contracts. If I was running a bunch of service contracts and stuff like that, and we set up all the contractual data in Business Central, but we have a Word document that all the verbiage. Okay, because if you ever done that in if you ever tried to do that in Business Central and print that out, sometimes it gets pretty cumbersome. Now they do have the Word integration now, and Business Central works pretty good, but this gives you the ability to do it not quite so developer heavy inside of Business Central itself. Okay, with that integration into Excel. All right, and so this is great. We've got all. I believe we have 16. Yep, we got 16 recipients. All this information, we can print these out, mail them, do whatever we want with them. So we're giving the user access to that. So the idea behind what we just looked at is, as we talked about that OData feed, if you have an Office application that will take an OData feed, we can connect live to that Business Central data. And the key was to setting up those URLs and that access inside of Business Central. Okay. So that will allow you to get, you could provide more ad hoc style reporting for your end users, okay? Because it all depends on the data set that you expose. I now have access to look at all my customer data based off any of these parameters, by location, by country, by anything like that, okay? I can get very good visuals and information out of here. Now, the next piece we're going to talk about is part of the Power Platform. Okay, the Power Platform is very powerful. I talked a lot about it in my keynote session, and one of the main pieces of the Power Platform is Power BI. Now in this session, we are not going to talk about Power BI or show Power BI. We actually have multiple sessions on Power BI, and that was by design, because there's no way I could cover or even give you a brief intro into the capabilities of Power BI in such a short amount of time. And so that's why we broke that out into multiple detailed sessions. Okay, so if you look at our session list, I advise you to go take a look at those, and you'll have access to that. Okay, so let's keep going and let's talk about the Power Platform. The next Power Platform piece I'd like to talk about, I'm going to jump back over here to my slides. Okay, so make sure I'm staying on track of what I said the agenda was. So configure dynamics to allow data connections. We did that. Then we talked about how to connect to Business Central with Microsoft Excel. Okay, we showed how we can do that through that OData feed. And then we connected to that data through Word, through a mail merge, and had that information there. Okay, so now let's talk about Power Apps. Okay, what is Power Apps? So again, Power Apps is just a platform for building applications that connect your data to work across the web and mobile. Okay, so it's a web interface or a mobile interface. Today we're going to focus on the mobile interface because if you have a web interface, you could probably get into Business Central yourself or different things. Okay, but the important part is the very end part of this statement. Without the time and expense of custom software development, okay, we're going to build a pretty straightforward Power App application today without any code development. And I'm hoping you're going to see kind of the power and the ability and what we can do within the Power App platform. Again, I wish I had a lot more time to talk about the Power Apps platform and show you some of the things it can do. I'm giving you just a quick introduction to it, and hopefully you can see the power of what that does, how it works, and how we can integrate that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump back over to, let's see, right here, and we're going to go into Power Apps. Okay, I'm already logged in here, but if you go to powerapps.microsoft.com, this is web-based, okay? All this is web-based. You don't have to install anything. And once you go here, you're going to click sign in. So once we get in here, we're in the Power App platform, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I want to create a Power App. So I'm going to start here. We're creating a Power App, and we're going to start with a Canvas, okay? So Canvas is just a very basic one, and we're going to link to this, okay? So we're going to give our app a name. We're going to call this TVF. I'm going to do this for a phone, call this TVF customers. All right, we're going to say create. All right, so actually that didn't start like I wanted it to. I have to go start this all again. I don't know what I did different. So if I go into apps, okay, I'm going to start from new apps right here. For some reason, this one is different. If you say create there, I thought it was the same, but we're going to go from Canvas right here. Looked like the same thing. And okay, so we're going to start an app right here, and this is where we're going to pull the data from. Okay, it starts with the common data service, SQL Server, SharePoint, all that information. If I click the arrow here, I can create a connection. I created a connection, so you can just say new connection and say Business Central is an option. Okay, and when you click Business Central, it'll ask you for your login. Okay, and so I just logged in, Ron at Tigunia.com, and it found my my Business Central information for Tigunia, because I'm logged in Tigunia. If you're at a client site, they would have to give you a login to their Business Central information. So I would just do, if I did the Microsoft one that I did earlier, it's like admin at Microsoft.com, and then that. So I already had my connection here into Business Central, and what it's doing right now is it's going and it's looking at all those page web services. Okay, actually, it did build them all, but it's looking at all the instances. I'm going to go to our sandbox. This is our demo environment. And then this is the list of all the page web services. Okay, so we see them all here. Okay, so here's our customer one that we created. Okay, so I'm going to click on customers and I'm going to say connect. Okay, what I really like what it's doing here, it is actually building a bunch of stuff out of the box for us. Okay, it's building a list page for us, a list form, a detail form of it, and then an editable version of it. Okay, so I'm just going to skip this little thing. So we've actually got a whole design environment. Okay, so if I just hit play right here and we want to look at the app, I can click on it. This is real-time data. Okay, so I can go in here, we see that customer data. I'm like, oh, hey, I want to edit that data. I can edit it. And this is live, real time. I'm doing everything right here. Okay, so it builds that shell for us. Okay, and I really like that is because now I have the format of how to do stuff. Remember, this is an actually application development with low code. I've done all this without doing any code or anything. Now it's just setting properties and parameters. Okay, so first thing I want to do is, I really want to change the theme. I kind of like a coral theme. This looks a little more like Tigunia colors. You can change all these themes. You can add some themes, modify them. So we're going to apply that theme to it. Okay, this is the main screen, the browse screen, what it looks like. I'm going to say, yeah, for the most part, this looks pretty good. I really want to change that to customers. So we'll capitalize that. You can change a lot of different parameters on it. Okay, so the initial detail screen, come down here. Okay, I don't like ID on here because this is going to be meaningless to the user. Okay, so I can come down into the ID section, and I'm gonna hide it. Okay, so I just hid that section right there. I just turned it off. I didn't want that. And I know they're going to have that same thing in the edit screen. The ID is meaningless to the user. Let's go ahead and hide that. And then we come down here and like the number, what we see here is under advanced, is where we know where it's pulling the data from. Okay, notice it locks everything by default. So if I want to change anything, I just unlock it. Okay, the data field's number. This is the name of the field that was exposed in that data set. Okay, it's calling it number. Okay, and so the display is what is up top. So I want to capitalize this one. Okay, I can make any changes, do any of that information to, and then we're going to go ahead and save this application. Okay, so we're just going to save, and we're going to call this TVF customer app. Okay. We're going to go ahead and let that save. Now this app, okay, is out there, and I have access to it. So now that I have that out there, I can go back to my apps, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh this right here. So refresh our list of apps that we have access to. Okay, here's our TVF customer app. I can click on it, and then what we'll see is our app. This is what the customer would see as our app. Okay, notice we picked the mobile version, so that's why we're getting this look. We can pull up this in our mobile phone. Okay, and so I can come right in here, and we see this A Datum Corporation. I'm going to hit edit, and what we're going to do is we're going to call this TVF. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and save that. Okay, so what I want to do now that I did this, I'm going to come up to businesscentral.dynamics.com. Actually, I don't want to go here. I want to go sandbox. We're going to go right into our sandbox because that's what we're in. Because I want to show you this real-time update. Okay, now if I go to customers, okay, see we got A Data Corporation TVF. Okay, that is the name of the customer. If I come back to my app, where's the actual app right here? Let's go back and edit. We do not want TVF on there. We can make modifications. Let's go back here, refresh the data. That should have refreshed. Hang on a sec. Okay, now it finally refreshed. It didn't refresh unless, there it is. Okay, it did refresh now. So notice we're modifying the data real time through the Power Apps. Okay, that means I have a salesperson that's in the field working with customers. They can update address information. They can actually put in an order from a mobile phone. Okay, I can do this with very low code, and I didn't have to bring an expensive developer and code all this. All of the business logic still gets ran. Okay, so if there was business logic that says, hey, you cannot put TVF on any customer name, okay, then it would kick back that error saying, hey, I can't make this modification. It respects those business rules, has access to all that information. Okay, so this app now we can share it with people. So if we go back into this app here, when we was at that share screen, after right here, when I hit the file, I can click share, and then I pick who in my organization am I going to share this with. Okay, I can say, okay, I'm the owner, and then I select users. Again, I'll send them an email, then it'll give them the link so they can connect to that app. Okay, so again, think about the ability to go and create this app and allow it to share it with your salespeople. Okay, and there's a lot of information I can see through that. So there is a question. And so I'm going to answer this question because it goes right along with what we're looking at here. It says, can you pull in custom fields into Power Apps? Now, when you're saying custom fields, are we talking custom fields that say someone extended the customer table? Hopefully, I'm going to answer that. I'm going to make that assumption. And the question is yes. But to pull that custom field in, someone would have had to add it to that customer list page. Okay, and so all of this is dependent upon having the data layer done. Okay, that's why if you've ever heard me talk about reporting and stuff, I always talk about the importance of the data layer. Okay, so if I added a new custom field onto the customer table, if I extended that table in Business Central and I added a new field called Tigunia's department or TVF lead source, and it had values, and I wanted to put that in Power App, I would have to also add that to that customer page. Okay, so if I extended the table, I would have to extend the page, and then it would be exposed, and I can do anything with. I can bring it into Excel for reporting. I can drop it on Power Apps so that it can be updated or anything like that. So if that didn't answer your question on custom fields, let me know, and I would be happy to expound on that a little more. Okay. So again, I wish I had more time in Power Apps just to show you some of the things we can do there, even in Excel and bring in other stuff. My idea here is to give you an introduction on how you can integrate these, okay? You're gonna have this recording. Feel free to rewatch it to get kind of the introduction, start linking it in, start playing with it, because you can get very, very far with the basics of this information. And now I can take, again, I have that Power Apps. I can share it with somebody. I can have access to it, log into my Power Apps application on my phone, and I could be out in the field working, updating customer information, doing all sorts of stuff that we would have access to. All right, so let's jump back over to the slides to make sure we got through. So we talked about what is Power Apps, and then right here, questions and answers. We're going to open up just to general questions. If there is no questions, I mean, I've got more things I'd like to talk about, but I want to open it up to see if anyone has questions. Again, here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out and let me know anything, have any questions or anything like that. So I'm going to ask this question. We just had another question come in. It says, what if I want to expose a page but don't know the page number, how to create the web service page? How can I find out? Okay, that is a great question. So let's go over here to Business Central. All right. I'm going to log in with, which one's this? This is my. So if I'm on a list page and I said, you know, I want to expose this one, okay, over here you click the question and then say help and support. And click, they move this every time, inspect pages and data. I'm hoping this is it. All right, so here's the list, here's the number right here, okay? So this is page 810, okay? So now I know exactly what page I need to expose. Okay, that's the quickest way I get to it if I need to do that. It tells you what page it is, all that information, and what table it's pulling from is pretty good. Now you can, when I say new here, okay, and I click page, and I click the down arrow here, it's going to give me a list of everything. Okay, so I can scroll down through and look, but there's thousands and thousands of pages here. Okay, so again, I always tell everyone, hey, why not go to, this is going to yell at me, why not go to the page you want to expose and then click the question helping about and say inspect page, and then it shows you this right here and it tells you, oh, this is page 810. That's exactly what I need to go to. Great question, thank you. Okay, web services are very powerful. Not a lot of people use them. I was way excited when Microsoft exposed them like this because it gave us a lot of power. And again, remember, you can still do this with older versions pre-BC. They still have web services. You can still connect to them. Okay, you still get the same power in those solutions. Okay, I've connected to them before and it works great. All right. Any other questions, Kelly?
I did want to touch a little bit of the things that we discussed today. I know we kind of went in a lot of detail on a lot of different things. I want to touch a little bit about on pricing. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yep. So yeah, that's a great question, Kelly. Thank you. Let's talk about pricing. So pricing, obviously in Excel and Word, that's just an Office license. Okay. Most people already have Office. That's just standard pricing. So a lot of people talk about Power Apps pricing. Okay, what does it cost for Power Apps pricing? And it's interesting how Microsoft priced it. Okay, so if I just do a search for Power Apps pricing, Okay, and then I'm going to click the Power Apps pricing right here. If anyone's ever priced Power BI, this will look very familiar. If you just want single app, it's just $10 per user. Okay, so I can make one Power Apps, and I can do more than just customers in it. I can have a whole bunch of different forms and stuff. I can have more than just that one data source. Okay, so I can have one big app with a lot of information, and it's $10 per user per month. If you want to split it out into individual apps, this is my customers app, this is my vendors app, this is my internal users app, separate out. That user can run unlimited number of apps. It's $40 per user per month, and then you got access to an unlimited number of apps. Okay. All right. So that's a great question. Like I said, this is very similar to Microsoft Power BI. It's $10 per user per month. Okay, and so this is very similar pricing. Microsoft just kept that model and brought it across. Okay, so we have another great question. I'll just read through it. It says, can you use Power Apps to bring in information from another service like Paycom to work with Azure AD, like creating a new hire app, for example? And the answer is yes. So when you looked at Power Apps there, when I come in here, and I said new app in Canvas right here, and this is mobile based, okay? This is what we're connecting to, okay? So start with your data, and then I say I wanna run a new connection. Here's everything we can connect to, okay? So out of the box, as I talked to earlier today, Microsoft has all these out of the box connections, okay? And so here's the Business Central that I set up, okay? I did the Business Central on-prem, that's one we set, and this is Business Central up in the cloud. Okay, and so there is a lot of different connectors out here. Okay, they even have the old Microsoft Dynamics Nav connector. Okay, but there's a lot of things you can get here, and I think they have SQL is very, very popular, SQL services and different information. So if there's a connector here for it, yes, you can connect to the external system. Okay, great question. Yep. So I'm going to expand on external data sources as well, because I've done a lot with data. As we're looking here, connecting to external data sources, if I didn't want to update the data, like if I wanted to update the data like in Business Central, then I would need a connection direct into Business Central. But if I wanted more just a reporting Power Apps that people log in, click information, and just see stuff, more of a reporting integration, and I want external systems, and I want a more of a common area, I would use the data warehousing concept, where I'd bring all those data sources. It could be 5, 10, could be 2, all into one common data warehouse, a SQL data warehouse. It could be Azure SQL, so that way it's up in the cloud and accessible for anyone, or it can be on-prem and you just install the gateway that connects through. All that data, doesn't matter where it comes from, Business Central, from an external system. I could have data in Excel spreadsheets. I marry it all together, drop it into a data warehouse, and connect to it from Power Apps with the SQL connector. And I've done this before. So you connect to it, and then you're able to get all that data, and then the user didn't have to care where it's coming from. Now, I premise that with, if you don't want them to update the data, because if you want them to update the data, you obviously have to connect to the source. The source of the data needs to do the modification. Okay. Any other questions I might have missed, Kelly?
It looks like we had one more pop in at the very end.
Okay.
A particular question. Let me see if I can get that feedback up again. Apologize. Can I create my own connectors?
That is a good question. I haven't got that deep into it. I've always used, anytime I've done anything, the deepest I got into SQL, because everything goes into SQL. That is a great question. If you will send me an email, just ron@tigunia.com, I will research that and take a look at that, if we can create a custom connector. Because I know they've opened it up that you can create your custom connectors in like Power BI and stuff, and I know they're constantly updating and exposing the Power App platform. So I will look at custom connectors and see if it's on the roadmap. So that would be good. Yeah,
Great.
yeah. So if you just reach out to me around at Tigunia.com, that is one that I have not come across yet. Like I said, because I haven't had the need for it. Because anytime that comes up, we've always converted the data into SQL.
Sure. Yeah, we'd definitely be happy to follow up with you on that. Like Ron said, if you want to reach out to him at ron@tigunia.com, I went ahead and put that link in the chat for you there. Like you said, we may not know the answer for you now, but our purpose is to serve you and make sure that you get the information that you need. So we will definitely track that information down for you and pass that along.
Great. Well, thank you. So as we wrap up here, again, from Tigunia, I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your day. We know your time is valuable, and so we hope that this hour that you took out of your valuable day, that you found value and information that will help you, again, perform better within your business, get better insights, and expand your business, allow it to grow. If there's anything we can do at Tigunia to help you along that path, again, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction, help out. We've got a team of experienced people that can help with at any level that you would like to do that. So with that, Kelly, I'll turn it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we do thank you all for attending this session. Again, like Ron had mentioned, we hope that the information provided here today was beneficial to you and your team. If you would like to connect with Ron, our presenter, like he had mentioned, his address is ron@tigunia.com, and I put that in the chat. Also, if you want to learn more about Tigunia services in full, please reach out to us directly at connect@tigunia.com, and we'd be happy to share some of that information for you as well. And just a reminder, we do have a lot more great presentations and sessions happening this week. We have more going around Power BI and that data management, so we'd love to see you guys there as well. So thank you again, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.